Hey everybody, Sean here, and I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to take a closer look at prophets from the Bible and prophets today. So let's jump right in. First, let's look at Old Testament prophets and what they spoke about. Obviously, the coming Messiah was a big topic. One scholar, J. Barton Payne, has found as many as 574 verses in the Old Testament that somehow point to or describe or reference the coming Messiah. Alfred Edersheim found 456 Old Testament verses referring to the Messiah or his times. And this article here shows 351 prophecies fulfilled in Jesus. This is easy to find in a Google search and provides both the prophecy on the left and the fulfillment of these prophecies in the verses on the right. But aside from the many prophecies about Jesus, what else was a common theme? Some Old Testament prophets, like Moses, heard directly from God and passed on the words through writing or speech. Some, like Joseph and Daniel, interpreted the dreams or visions of others. They could be prophecies of the future, messages for the listener, or quite often, they were warnings. Noah preached about the coming judgment. Moses spoke judgment against Pharaoh, and his prophecies included both rebuke against the Israelites and predictions of their future. In fact, most of the prophets spoke with a very firm tone and rebuke. Think of Amos, "Hear this, you who trample the needy, to do away with the humble of the land." Or Isaiah, "Learn to do right, seek justice, encourage the oppressed, defend the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." Jeremiah, "Woe to him who builds his house by unrighteousness and his rooms by injustice, who uses his neighbor's service without wages and doesn't give him his hire, who says, 'I will build me a wide house and spacious rooms,' and cuts him out windows, and it is ceiling with cedar and painted with vermilion." Ezekiel, "Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy." And Zechariah, "This is what the Lord Almighty said. Administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against one another." This is much different than the words we hear so-called prophets speak today. It's all about your best life now, increasing your fold, planting seeds, and reaping a harvest. And in the New Testament, prophecy for the most part was warning about the end times, persecution, the Antichrist, and the second coming of Christ, and all that followed after that. In both Matthew and Luke, we are told that the law and the prophets were until John. So after John wrote Revelation, futuristic prophecy was complete. And today, if you hear anyone prophesying some future event that's already been spoken of in the Bible, then it's not necessary. Now, Chris Vallotton says that one part of prophecy is for the future. And we'll look at that in a moment, but first we have to understand prophecy a bit better. Joel is quoted in Acts 2:17, saying that in the last days God would pour out his Spirit, and your sons and daughters will prophesy, see visions, and the old will dream dreams. Technically, we can say that the last days started with Jesus when referring to Hebrews 1. But when referring to Acts, referring to Joel, we can get much more specific if we look at things in context. Joel says the same thing as Acts, but there's a sentence at the top that's important. "And it shall come to pass afterward." After what? If we go to the start of Joel 2, we find out. We see that this chapter is speaking about the day of the Lord. Now, depending on your eschatological viewpoint, that might be slightly different. If you're pre-trib, that may mean the start of the 7-year covenant. If you're like myself, I believe it's after the 6th seal, when they're crying out that the day of wrath has come. But regardless what view you take, Joel is talking about the day of the Lord. And if we scroll down to verses 10 and 11, we see the verses that match the sun and moon being darkened after the 6th seal in Revelation 6. And if we jump down to the passage starting with verse 28, this seems to be mentioned again. So when it starts by saying, "It shall come to pass afterward," I'm understanding this as either after the sun and moon are darkened or after the 7-year covenant begins. But I don't believe futuristic prophecy is happening today. Yes, people have dreams, visions, and prophecies in one sense, but not the futuristic prophecy that we see so many proclaiming today. So let's listen to Chris Vallotton.
And prophesying, it's fine to say, thus saith the Lord. Some of you raised in that culture where you have to say that, whatever, doesn't bother me.
So let's just start with that one. It's not okay to say, thus saith the Lord, unless you are actually a prophet called by God and are speaking on his behalf. But Chris just blows it off, because, you can be wrong with prophecy 80% of the time anyway, so no big deal.
I've used this example over and over. I really like this one example because of how dramatic it was when it happened. This pastor came and said, can you prophesy over my team? This is during a conference. They were from Los Angeles area. Can you prophesy over my team? There's about 8 of us. I said, sure, bring them up. So it was husband and wife teams, and I'll never forget, they were standing right here. And so I started to minister to the first couple, husband and wife couple. And I start with the woman, and I said, I see you singing songs, I see you writing songs, and I see you playing guitar and leading worship. Well, before I can get to the second thing, I see you singing, and when I go to the second thing, she goes, wait, no, that's not me. It's my husband. She said, I'm tone deaf, but my husband's the worship leader in our church. I go, lady, shut up. I said, do you know what a prophecy is? She said, I guess I don't. I said, a prophecy is about the future, and if you believe this prophecy, it will give you the ability to do what you couldn't do 1 second before you heard the prophecy.
So first off, there is not one Bible verse to support what he's saying. That if you believe what someone prophesies over you, then you will be able to do it. That's Joel Osteen, positive confession garbage, and how dare you tell her to shut up?
She said, well, do me again. I said, all right. So and I prophesied to her, and it was longer, but the 3 basic points were, I see you singing, I see you leading worship, writing songs, and playing guitar. And she said, all right, I received that for myself. I said, good. So about 8 or 9, 10 months later, another conference, I meet this person at the back of the sanctuary. She said, do you remember me? I said, no, honestly, I'm sorry, I don't. She said, you prophesied over me. I said, I prophesy over hundreds of people a year. She said, you told me to shut up. I'm thinking, well, that narrowed it down to about 3 or 4. But as soon as she said, I said, oh, I remember you. Your pastor brought your whole team up. She said, yeah, and then she repeated the prophecy. She said, you told me I was going to lead worship, I was going to play guitar, I was going to write songs. I said, I remember that. And she said, remember I told you I was tone deaf? I said, yeah. She said, as soon as I left the meeting, she said, my tone deafness left. She said, within 3 months, I learned to play guitar. She said, I've written several songs, and I lead worship in our 500-member Vineyard Church on Sunday.
So let me get this straight. She leaves that meeting and is instantly healed and didn't go back to tell him about it? She had to wait for 8, 9, 10 months? He goes on to mention a bit about some blue on red stuff that he taught earlier and how she got the grace.
What happened? She got the blue on the red. She got grace. She got the ability to do what she couldn't do 1 second before she heard the word. Are you getting this? Now, what would have happened if she would have walked away going, instead of saying, that was my husband, let's say that she did what most people do, and they just keep their mouth shut, and they walk away going, oh, that prophetic person's, their ministry sucks, How many of you know she wouldn't have learned to play guitar? She wouldn't have learned to sing. She would have remained tone deaf. Why? Because she had to add her faith. Remember Romans 12. She had to add her faith to get the grace that was on the red so she could get the blue.
This is nothing more than a believe it and receive it feel-good message. Romans 12 is about gifts, but has nothing to do with someone prophesying over you, and if you have faith to believe whatever they say, you're going to be healed and develop abilities that you never had. So let's get back onto the topic of prophecy and modern-day prophets. Yes, some can get a word of knowledge or wisdom about something or somebody, but that's in God's timing and for His purpose. Nobody like Chris that teaches you can be wrong in prophecy most of the time should be listened to. Nobody that has schools and classes to learn prophecy and charges money should be listened to. Prophecy is one of the many gifts, and we all have different gifts. And in reference to the school of prophets in 1 Samuel and 2 Kings, this is not referring to an actual school. If you talk to anyone who knows Hebrew, they will explain this refers to a group or community, much like when we speak of a school of fish, not a fish school. So, is there a gift of prophecy for today? Yes. 1 Corinthians 14 is clear that he who prophesies speaks to people for their upbuilding, encouragement, and consolation. It's not about future events, especially when it's about increasing yourself in some area. It's not about just believe what I said to you and it's going to come true, like Chris is teaching. Should we desire to prophesy? Absolutely. Scripture tells us to in 1 Corinthians, as it builds up the church. But seek God on this and for his purpose. Don't pay money or go to schools or take courses on this. And don't try to be the next Dana Coverstone and think that we need to get some new revelation of upcoming events. God has told us everything we need to know in the Bible. So, as always, leave your thoughts and comments below, and until next time, take care and God bless.